Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sparring Partners. Today, as always, there is a brand new topic, and I've been meaning to talk about private networks for a long time and ports specifically, and now I have the opportunity to do so. And I'm very lucky to have Carl Coates, who is the ICT Business Relationship Manager at Irish Rail, and he works at the Rosslare Europort. And we're going to talk about all the interesting stuff they're doing there, and it's quite fascinating because there is so much you can do. Well, pretty much anywhere, but in a port specifically, there is so much potential for services applications and so on. So, Carl, why don't you tell us who you are, what you're doing, and actually where Rosslare Europort is? I just found out where that is. So go ahead.
Thanks, Monica. Thanks for having me. Yeah, my name is Carol Coates. I work mainly in an IT role in Irish Rail. For those who don't know, Rosslare Europort is the second busiest port in Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland. It's based right down in the corner, the southeast of the country, the sunny southeast. Um, it serves a huge number of customers, not just freight, but also passengers. We have six different routes, two mainly to the UK and the other four then to mainland Europe. So we serve Bilbao in Spain, a number of ports in France, and there's also three sailings a week to Zeebrugge in Belgium. The port itself has had a massive transformation, particularly over the last 5 or 6 years. I've been very lucky to be based down in the port for that time. I've managed and led the digital transformation of the port. The port itself uniquely is owned and operated by the National Rail Company here in Ireland as well. So it's part of the portfolio of the business. It's a little bit different to a railway operation, as you'd imagine. So when I first joined the team down in the port, I had to learn about berths and vessels and tides and wind and weather conditions that you don't expect when you're operating a railway. So it's been a huge challenge, but it's also been a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing that when you start working on environments like that, you have to learn all the sort of nitty-gritty details, which, as I said, tides. I mean, do you really need to know about them? And yes, you do. So and actually that adds to the fascination. So maybe you can walk us through, what is the project you're working on? What were you trying to do? What were the issues you were trying to solve with the network?
I suppose from the start, we were just looking to grow. So initially we had two ferry operators in the port. That would have been Stena Line and Irish Ferries. They would have been customers of the port for 30 to 40 years, serving those UK routes. And one of them sailed a couple of times a week to France for people traveling to Europe. But then the incidents that happened were COVID once and then Brexit. So Brexit has had a huge impact on the economy, particularly in Ireland and especially the southeast, because we had to change the way that we worked directly with the UK and with our European partners. So commonly in Ireland, a lot of cargo and freight would have gone over the land bridge directly to the UK. So drivers would have got on in Rosslare or in Dublin and then travelled across mainland UK to Dover and then made their way to Calais to get to Europe. With the new rules and with I suppose the new processes, it meant that there was a lot of problems for hauliers, for logistics to actually make their way to mainland Europe. So Rosslare really benefited that a lot of people changed their methodologies and their processes and decided to go direct from Rosslare. So it meant that the driver could drive down south to us in the port and then take a ferry directly to Europe. So the drivers seem to prefer that, less driving, less work on their tachograph, and it's really benefited the port. We've seen at times an increase in volume and business of 468%. So the port has really exploded. And what I took ownership of was not just the physical layout of the port, but also the technological level of the port. Previously, we were very analog, very paper based. So vehicles were entering or exiting the port, or if manifests were being sent, it was done via a paper format or a ledger, or maybe an Excel sheet there or two. So what I was lucky to do was be involved from the very start, and we put in processes for technology. So we purchased a system called Smartport, a terminal operating system, a little bit unique in the industry. We found that it's actually completely cloud based, and we've got cloud support for the technology, so it's modular. So we brought in technology like OCR cameras, so optical character recognition, ANPR, so automatic number plate recognition. We use LiDAR both at the entrance and the exit, so we can scan vehicles, we can measure them. We can also present that on a cloud-based system for auditing or for reviewing. We have a number of subsystems in the port for workforce management, for safety and security. We also use a cloud-based EHS system, so that's a safety system that's integrated directly into the main platforms that we have. We're actually going to tender at the moment for a new vessel tracking system as well. And all of this is compiled together with a huge fiber network that's state of the art for Irish Rail. So we're a bit of a showcase in relation to NIS2 for cyber security, for also for business continuity. So if the fiber was to go down, we use 4G and 5G on site as well for a number of the modules for Smartport. So our full end-to-end operation has both contingency from a physical point of view, but also from a wireless point of view as well.
Yeah,
Sorry,
so
my coffee machine's going off in the background here.
that's perfectly fine. So, well, that's good. I heard that Brexit was good for something, for some innovation and pushing innovation. So it's good. Good to hear that. And it looks like you have been able to pack different applications. And in my previous work, on private networks, one of the challenges is that if you just look at a few applications, that the network is very expensive to support them. It's only when you have a lot of them that then everything sort of the financial makes sense, because then you can use the network for many things. But okay, so can we step back a little bit in terms about what is the basic infrastructure, the basic 5G infrastructure that supports all these applications and services?
Yeah, so where we started from, we started with the public 4G network that was available to the site. And with Smartport, it allowed us to be very flexible. So the site itself went through a huge physical transformation where we built 30 new buildings on site. There were line of sight issues, obviously, with new infrastructure going in. But what we were able to do with our partners is use the public 4G to present Smartport and the applications on mobile devices. So instead of a ledger or a piece of paper, we were able to put an iPad in the hands of our staff. So we were able to input vehicles as they go in and out. We were able to take records. We were able to do live checks on inventory and basically be dynamic when it came to loading and discharging a vessel. Rosslare's main priority is roll on, roll off business. So a lot of the freight that goes in and out would be handled by our teams, by our stevedores with our tug tractors. So flexibility and agility is really required for that type of business. It's not like a sort of a common container port where there's a truck and a 40-foot container and then a crane that loads the vessel. We have to do everything by road mostly.
Yeah, so I have to ask this. What about Wi-Fi? Didn't you have Wi-Fi? Wasn't that enough?
No, we didn't have enough. We had a public facing Wi-Fi solution for our customers, both indoor and outdoor, but it definitely wasn't fit for purpose. And that's why we're going down the road now of mobile private networks and 5G technology, because we have a number of really valuable use cases that we think that we can really get return on investment. They go all the way from helping our customers with their Wi-Fi and with access points, all the way to unmanned drones that will help us when we start to build our offshore wind facility, heavy lift drones, ferry ports. We're really trying to scale and put a strategy in for the next 10 to 20 years.
For 4G, what spectrum did you use? I mean, and what kind of arrangements did you have?
So we have an MSP. So we use Vodafone on the railway network to manage both our own mobile devices, but also our fleet of railway vehicles. They would have SIM cards and access points on board as well. So that's a complete package. What Rosslare needs is something a little bit different. A mobile private network allows us to focus on our operations internally. We can slice up 5G then to other parts of the operation. So maybe for security with CCTV, maybe as a backup to our core network in relation to our OT equipment, which would be vital if something was to happen to the physical fiber network. There's also the peripheries and the other technology that we use for SmartPort. So cameras and sensors. We have a weight and motion system that we use around the port as well. So that rather than vehicles being static and getting weighed by physical sensors, we can do it in milliseconds with a vehicle actually in motion. So that's a key part of what we do. One of the cool stats that I like to say to people is that previously, before we installed all this technology, it used to take us about 6 minutes to process a truck. Now we're doing 6 trucks in 1 minute when the system is fully optimized. So it really gives us power and enhances the capabilities of our staff on the ground as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that, I was working on airports, and we would kind of come up with the, use cases, and we ended up with hundreds of them because there is so much stuff you can, once you have a network, right? So you mentioned 4G. What about 5G? What's,
Yeah, 5G is nationally rolled out now in the Republic of Ireland, and that's where what we're looking for now is spectrum to run not just the public 5G on site, but also the private 5G. There's a number of obviously legal entities and elements that are coming into the European side with NIS2. We're a zero trust organization, so cyber becomes everything that we do. It's built in from the start. One of the pillars that we have is because Rosslare is a common user port, we have 5 separate customers, 5 different ferry operators. They each have their own requirements. They have their own contracts and SLAs that we have to be aware of. They also have to be kept separate, so siloed from one another. So we do 5 direct integrations with each of those ferry operators. So there's a huge amount of trust involved in relation to commercial activity and volumes and customer information that we have to keep safe.
yeah, absolutely. So is your 5G network already operating, or what's the
Yeah,
status?
the public 5G is up.
Oh, okay.
We ran a proof of concept with Vodafone for 6 or 7 months last year, while the
Mhm.
construction was going on, and it was really vital in testing the use cases that we want to fully roll out in the port. The next stage for us is to fully implement multiple devices in the port. So a couple of the use cases I think you'd be interested in, Monica. Obviously, we're going to improve our communications with our staff. So they'll be issued with ruggedized smartphones with push to talk technology. The most interesting use case is a project that we call MIV. So MIV is MIV, Mobile Inventory Vehicle. So our partners who supply our camera technology have micro-sized an OCR camera down to the size of about a smartphone, and we've mounted 2 of these units to our tug tractors. So our tug tractors are the vehicles that we use to move cargo around the port. And what the camera does using the mobile private network, but also GPS and an onboard router, it can identify trailers in place using the text, but also it uses an API then to call out trailers that are booked with us. So we can track how long a trailer has been sitting in the yard, when it needs to be moved, what vessel it's going on. And that's dynamic. So the system is checking it hundreds of times a day once the vehicle is in motion. And it's something that is pretty cutting edge. I don't think there's any other port in the world that's doing it at the moment. And that's all powered by the 5G technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go into the use cases, but before we go there, because they all seem so fascinating. But uh, whenever you have an application, you're trying to do something. How involved are you in developing the software and the application, and how much you depend on? I would imagine that those are already applications out there, but there are things that nobody else is doing. So, how much you're doing it yourself in house, and how much you rely on a partner?
Yeah, with Smartport, there's a lot of leaning on our partner. So the partner is Brock Solutions. Like I said, they're a powerhouse in the digital integration space, but Rosslare was their first port that they've ever done. They manage over 135 international airports. So they come from the aviation space. But they've moved into the marine side of things where it isn't as regulated and it isn't as concise when it comes to communications. So with airlines, there's a common use for baggage, for barcodes, for scanners. That doesn't exist in the marine side. So what we've had to build with Brock, and we're very proud of, is we've built a universal sort of language for cargo, for particularly for roll on, roll off, that we hope that we can develop and share and collaborate with other ports. We actively communicate very regularly with Dover, with Calais, with Dunkirk in France. We've active partnerships with a lot of third level institutions here in Ireland as well. So we take in graduates, PhDs, people doing their masters to try and utilize the skills that we have here, but also to try and create a common user or a port community system. That's the ambitious plan that we have here, is to create a single language that we can all use in the industry going forward, because it's something that's really needed.
And I think that this is really interesting. And in Europe, there is the opportunity for different ports or entities to work together, because then when whatever goes from one place to the other, then you have the same system. So I think it looks like because you're not competing with other ports, you're I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
like,
you're competing with some other port in Ireland, but you're not competing with the port in
no,
France.
the grand scheme of things, we're a very small port, but the main port in Ireland is Dublin. But Dublin, in recent years, is at capacity. So we're
Mhm.
like a pressure valve for Dublin at times, where we can take the pressure off the volumes that are going through there. But what we do have is a system now that can be built upon. And, in relation to integrations, we've done it with ferry operators. We're currently in a project with our local government as well. So revenue and customs will be integrating directly into Smartport to get a data feed and to understand the flows and forecasts of vehicles that are coming into the country and out of the country. Um, we've hosted over 20 ports at this stage now to showcase what we've done. So we've had a number of ports from Scandinavia, from the UK, from mainland Europe, from America as well. And, we're willing to sort of open up what we've done, because I think from a personal point of view, I think it's always a benefit to communicate, and in the same format and same language. I think it really helps people. Like, I have great relationships with guys in Portsmouth, and we're always questioning each other. What are you doing here? How did you do this? It's great to collaborate with people in that way and try and improve what we're doing in the industry.
Again, before we go into the use cases, if for all this, are you getting support from the European Union, the government? I mean, some public forms and funding sources, and is regulation essential, or it's basically try to do the best you can?
We're doing the best we can at the moment. EU funding I've personally, I've found quite difficult. I've been involved in 3 different submissions for CEF funding and been unsuccessful 3 times. But we have received funding for what is our Birth 3 extension. So that's allowing us to transform not only that berth, but also deepen our port, which means we can get bigger vessels and more business into the port. There's also an element of power that we need. So we need a new grid connection for ship to shore power. We're also in talks with the ESB, which is the Electricity Supply Board in Ireland, to develop a microgrid solution for the port. So that's dynamic loading, dynamic use of power. So static battery storage, electrifying our tug fleet that we have. So again, the tug tractors, they're our biggest emitter of carbon in the port and the biggest user of diesel in the port. So we want to electrify that whole fleet to
Mhm.
obviously help us with our sustainability targets, but also to save money. Um, yeah, there's a number of sort of benefits to that. But from an EU level, we have support for mobile private network. We're probably going to have to do it ourselves. We're trying to be a little bit innovative in relation to the contract that we have suppliers for. So it's going to be based on a different model. They're more of a spend with OPEX, operational costs, rather than spending a huge amount of money on core and physical hardware. So we're trying to be a little bit innovative there. So that's about as much as I can say on that. That's sort of in
Mhm.
progress.
Yeah, that's all very interesting. And again, before we get to the other use cases, let's talk about the sustainability and the power. You mentioned the offshore wind facility. So
Mhm.
you started with the network for connectivity, obviously, but then energy hit, basically, right? I mean, so
Yeah.
how do you look at the energy part? You mentioned a lot of different projects you have, but can you just give us the sort of the high level and how do you end up going into the uh, wind facility, which is basically
Yeah.
not your core business, but how you
No, no, it's not, but it's an essential part of, I suppose, the strategy for Ireland for 2050. We have to improve our renewable energy, but also our energy independence. We're very reliant on coal and gas, and everything that we do is imported. So we need to create that independence for ourselves. And one of the big plans for the Republic of Ireland is offshore wind at our south coast. So if you understand the geography of Ireland, so south of Rosslare, there will be huge amounts of offshore wind also around Waterford and Cork. And each of those areas has to be developed. And Rosslare was picked as the prime location for the assembly and the maintenance of these types of units. So the plan is once the planning is confirmed, the work will start straight away. Rosslare is going to be reclaiming 53 acres of the sea. So they're going to double the size of the footprint of the port. And obviously, there's going to be a huge amount of infrastructure, a huge amount of construction again, but also a huge amount of network that's required. So there will be fiber requirements. There will be a huge amount of wireless required because as that area develops, they're going to need comms, they're going to need communication between teams, but also then for the strategy, they're saying that it may take up to 10 years to fully deploy all the offshore wind out at that site. So you're going to need really, really solid mission critical communications. And with the way technology is moving now with UAVs, with unmanned aircraft, with AI, I would imagine that we're going to need a full gamut of capabilities in relation to heavy lift drones, to Veripads, to eVTOL. Obviously, it's much better to send an autonomous unit out to a really dangerous area at sea rather than sending a human being. So I would imagine a lot of that would be autonomous by the time that the fields are fully commissioned. So Rosslare has to be an enabler for that. You know, we have to be able to provide 5G, 6G at times, and make sure that there is the infrastructure in place for the operations to be successful.
Now, when you got offshore, clearly that there are their own constraints, and when you think about wind energy, you think, well, there's just this thing spinning, but actually there is a huge amount of network requirements in terms of latency and reliability. So it's not trivial. So how are you going to be managing that? I mean, you mentioned
Yeah, I
5G,
suppose.
6G, but fiber.
Yeah, so the fiber is our primary comms, and it's very resilient and it's very modern what we have. But the goal for us with the mobile private network is that we have that resiliency if something was to happen to the core network, that we can use the 5G, the mobile private network, as a backup, or as a sort of a, we can piggyback on top of that comms. And the low latency is key, especially with key parts of the operation. So CCTV being one, making sure that we're covering our security standards and making sure that everybody is safe. The push to talk is fascinating too, because smartphones are so advanced now that we can identify if Monica is out by the quayside, or if she has a fall, or if you're working by yourself and you have an incident, you can press an emergency button and we know where you are, and we can put an emergency plan in place. There's also gyroscopes and water sensors built into these devices as well. So if you were unfortunate enough to fall into the water, we can react. Um, what's exciting from a spectrum point of view as well is that we could potentially commercialize the 5G as well. So we could slice that up for, be it ferry operators who are coming into port, because satellites and everything else are very expensive, and data packets. So if we could take some of the pressure off those industries as well, so we allow their staff to use their own comms using a slice of 5G. There's also surveying that we do a lot of. So sometimes we have to get divers in the water to check integrity of berths and concrete pillars and walls and seawalls. Now, potentially, we can do that with underwater drones as well, which could be maintained via the 5G. So there's a number of really fascinating use cases. But I suppose the key one for us initially would be cybersecurity and also the safety of our staff. That's most important.
Okay, so very final question before we get to the real use cases. How long before you get into to a state where you are energy independent? You think you have an estimate of that?
Energy independence, that's I would say it's a key question right now with what's going on in the Middle East and
Yeah,
around the world.
exactly.
Um, we're a big user of fossil fuels. The electrification will happen in the next 2 years in Rosslare. Either way, there's a huge project for the land-based vehicles, but we're mandated by the EU to have that ship to shore element in by 2030. So
That's
that has
it.
to be done. Yeah. But again, with that is progress as well. So we're going to be linking up with the Port of Dunkirk as well. So they're doing something very similar, but they have another feature. So they're going multimodal. So they have a freight line via train that comes into the port, and we're looking to learn and understand what they're doing. So using that multimodal modality, so being able to move stuff over freight and load the vessels and discharge the vessels directly onto a train. It's something that we have in our plans to do in the future as well. So that's how Rosslare is looking to learn, and Irish Rail is looking to uh, get more sort of road vehicles off the road and actually use our rail facility and our railway as it reaches throughout the island of Ireland. It's something that we don't really utilize at the moment, but it's in our big strategy for 2050 to try and enhance that.
Now I feel like we could be talking for hours about all your applications because they all seem so cool. So let me give you the opportunity to say, what is the application surface that you found more surprising? Like, there was so many of them. What is the one they say, oh my God, this thing is doing something so incredibly cool that you were not
It's
expecting or, whatever?
the surprising one. It's actually not the technology, it's the change in our people.
Mhm.
When we first started this project, I was treated with a lot of suspicion. They thought I was trying to replace people with autonomy and with technology, and there was a resistance to move from a paper-based system because it had been in place for 30 or 40 years.
Mhm.
And when I introduced devices and iPads, it was treated with a lot of suspicion. But the most joy I got out of the process was being out on the ground with the guys and the girls in the bad weather, iterating and creating interfaces for people who are not digitally native initially. So there was resistance at the start, but as we began to flow and to change things for their day-to-day work, I got a lot of feedback from those people who are tying up ships, who are getting dirty, loading trailers, who are moving things around, and device is the last thing on their minds. They're worried about their day job, but being able to use them as test cases and guinea pigs to say, listen, how can I improve your day? How can I make your day that little bit better? And been out there with them in the bad weather, changing things, tweaking things. I know it's not necessarily very attractive, but the technology was just an enabler for it. But the thing has been able to help people, uh, again, just with their day-to-day job. That's been the most interesting part for me and the most rewarding personally for me.
Absolutely. And this is something that I'm really glad you bring it up because this is something that it's often forgotten about. And so sometimes you do have this very cool new technology things, and then nobody can use them. They just
Mhm.
like, they just either refuse, they don't know how to use it, they're hard to use because, they're not, people might not be digitally up to date, but oftentimes it's also the applications that might work from a technology point of view, but they're not easy for people to use, not because there's no fault on the people. It's just, so I think that that's really an important thing to make sure that people can use them and to find them
Yeah.
useful. um do you think that the AI is going to make it better on one hand, but do you think that that would have an impact on how many people you will eventually need to have?
From a port perspective, it won't impact the business directly in the short term. It's just the physical nature of the maritime space. Like I see what's happening in China and the Far East in relation to autonomy and robots and loading vessels. that is generally in a cargo sense. So low, so load on and load off, where it's very process driven, it's very automated, it's one step, two step, three step, and you don't really need a human being. Uh, low, so load on and load off is very manual. You need a human being. You need someone with expertise to maneuver a vehicle in and around the ship. They know the angles to take as they approach a ramp. I don't see it in the short term where AI can sort of take that process over. It's something we use every day in relation to the inventory in the port, to identifying vehicles. We use obviously a cloud-based system through Azure, so Microsoft Azure, and we use an AI tool called Azure Vision to identify particular trailers as they enter the port. That's something that's really helped us in speed and efficiency. Other elements of AI that will definitely impact us in the next couple of years. When I speak about UAVs and unmanned drones, potentially they could be used in rotation or in swarms to help us with safety and security. So making sure that our borders are covered and that our area is secure. I think that's something that will definitely be automated in the next few years, particularly with the mobile private network that we have. It's more about, I suppose, the internal processes that we have where AI can have a big benefit. I spend a lot of my time in my day job with railway projects and with large scale infrastructure projects using AI, particularly for planning, for program management, for ideation. And we have a really good innovation program here in Irish Rail. So it's really encouraged. So there's a lot of use of Claude Code, a lot of use of really fast spin up applications that we can develop ourselves. And the thing is, we're trying to encourage our people internally, not just IT people and data scientists, but people that are on a train or working on a platform or working in a port, to come up with ideas and applications for the use of it. So it's something that's really encouraged, but we also have to be cognizant and aware of the cyber risks and things getting out of control. So there's a big governance piece in relation to the use of AI. So it's something that's moving so fast. I'm actually starting a master's in September in applied technology. I'm coming to my master's a little bit late, but the thing is, it's been encouraged by the people that we have in our organization to go and learn, to go and understand these things and not fear them. Because I think personally, there's a lot of doom and gloom about AI, but I think it can help us so much. I only watched the documentary about the thinking game about Demis Habbis, the London-based scientist that won the Nobel Prize for protein folding, with Google DeepMind. And these are the tiny little projects that can become huge. And I think that if we sort of be a little bit more optimistic about AI, I think it can really help us. But that's just my personal opinion. I think from an operational point of view, it's going to have a big impact in what we do day to day. But from a port point of view, physically, I don't see AI impacting in the next few years. Maybe in the next 10 years, but it's a space to watch out for.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to get ready and we need to be open to learn rather than, as you say, be scared of it. Now, if you were to look at, you talk about so many things you're doing, but are there areas where you're facing challenges? Like, what is the hardest thing that you're trying to do and maybe you're not able to do yet?
The biggest struggle that we've had is just the general pace of change and innovation in the marine space. A common comment that's made is that the marine industry is probably 20 or 30 years behind aviation, because there isn't that standardization, and the margins are very small commercially. So there isn't really that appetite for drastic change, especially when it comes to technology. And one thing we've done in Rosslare, we've moved very, very quickly in the last couple of years, and it's taken a lot of effort and time to try and connect with the ferry operators. They're our key customers, and there isn't that will to I would say invest in technology. That's just, again, a personal opinion. That's been one frustration where we have the technology stack ready to go. We have the developers willing to put the time in, but it's just I don't think it's as attractive to the marine side. Yeah, they will come, and smart ports are uh, the next big thing in relation to ports themselves. But I think the speed of transition is the frustrating part.
Yeah, and I think that, you mentioned two parts, the adoption by humans and partners. And I think that what that points out is that, and this is something that I've noticed many times, is like technology is ahead of us. So technology can do a lot of things, but if you cannot get it to be used, that is actually what's slowing down adoption in many cases. It's not the fact that we don't know how to do it. We know how to do it. It's not even
Yeah,
that
like
expensive.
I I always say it. It's like, there's no pointing in creating something that's cool and shiny and looks nice. It has to be applicable. It has to be usable by people, by real people, in their day to day. And there was a lot of our projects that we thought would work really well, but when we put it in the hands of the important people on the ground, it didn't. It wasn't fit for purpose. So there's a lot of checking your ego and going, "Oh, I thought that was going to work," and we probably wasted a bit of money there. So the one thing that I've taken from this project is that you need to go to your people first and see what they need and build for their needs rather than going to a board or to a CTO or someone in technology going, "Do you think this is a good idea?" Because they're generally going to say, "Yes, that's a good idea." But the thing is, it has to be useful, it has to be practical. And it's the biggest lesson I've learned.
Yeah, and it's not obvious because it's not like something that might look really cool to us, and it might not be cool to actually people doing the job because we don't do it.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to ask you something more specific about sensing. Um, Isaac, how is that going to fit? Because it seems like sensing is just bread and butter for you.
Yeah,
How is that?
what it does for us is it gives us data, but it also gives us insight into our day-to-day work. So on the roadside, we record thousands of data sets every day in relation to a road vehicle or a truck coming into the port. But there's also the marine side. So we use AIS, which is vessel tracking,
Mhm.
transponders. We use a huge amount of OT equipment as well. So sensing in relation to barometric sensors for air pressure, tidal sensors for moving vessels in and around the waterways. And we also use wind sensors to guide the ship's captains into berths. So that's standard in every port. But what
Mm.
we're trying to do is sort of integrate all these subsystems into Smartport and create like a single window of information. And what the data sets allow us to do as well in real time is create sort of visualizations and dashboards using Power BI to predict and forecast. We use a workforce management tool that we got last year called RotaGeek. And RotaGeek initially was a time and attendance piece for our staff so they could clock in and clock out. But it's so much more than that because we can manage rosters, we can feed in schedules and sort of predict when we need people, if there's going to be a weather event, or if there's going to be a cancellation of vessels. We can adapt and change very quickly.
Now, what about the sort of 6G sensing, the one where you use the signal to to get like location, all the other information? Is that going to be, how important is that going to be for you?
Just for future proofing, it's going to be really important. Obviously, the 5G is where we are now, was that level of technology. We were unlucky. We submitted a CEF funding request with Trinity College Dublin last year. Unfortunately, we were unsuccessful, but the project was to see the capability of 6G in the port, and we had planned to borrow an autonomous tug from Antwerp in Belgium. And we wanted to run testing of an autonomous unit and how it would behave in a roll-on, roll-off port. So using SmartPort and using the camera systems that we have, we wanted to give that capability to an autonomous unit to be able to pre-stage trailers and move the trailers around and move in a dynamic environment where there's not just people but also infrastructure. That's unfortunate we didn't get the funding this time around, but we're very much in that sort of space of innovation, and we're open to working with people. So I suppose this is a call to your audience to say Rosslare would love to work with other people, with other industries, and try and really develop something interesting.
Absolutely. And that sounds like you have so much work you could potentially do and so many people you can work with. So our time is up, but before I let you go, why don't you tell me what is that you're working on right now in the next for the next say 6 months or year? What's coming up next?
But the big target for us, Monica, is to actually implement the mobile private network because that's the basis for everything that we're doing in the future. Between you and me, I have about 20 use cases for 5G in the ports once we have that network operated. We're also being used as a sort of a case study for Irish Rail as well in relation to cyber resilience with the NIS2 compliance coming in June. So that's a big part of my work at the moment. We're looking at business continuity, so how we'd be impacted as a business because we're so reliant on technology now at this stage. What we go through scenarios with our government agencies as well about the importance of the port. We're now a key piece of infrastructure within the national network. Uh, Other projects are the sort of stuff I really enjoy are the applied AI projects. So trying to find applications and uses for AI in operational environments and trying to do that in a safe way. We're doing safety systems. We have projects in relation to carbon tracking and sustainability. We've got a number of really interesting projects that we're looking to build in-house because of the speed of the AI that we have now. We're able to do a lot of things ourselves faster, and that's my interest. Obviously, going up to September of this year will be to start my masters and to come up with a really interesting project.
Well, Carl, thank you so much. This was just absolutely mind blowing, and maybe we should have another one next year. So to see what progress you've made, and it looks like you're set to do a huge amount of progress. It's very exciting. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark. I really appreciate your time, and you're very welcome to come to Rosslare and see what we've done.
Yeah. Maybe the next podcast will be live from Rosslare if we can. Uh,
Great.
well, thank you so much, and thank you to all of you for listening in. I hope you find it exciting, and you will see a link so that you can contact Carl and Rosslare Europort if you want to work there. Thank you so much.